the chairman of the Makati Business Club, for his reaction, Mr. Ramon Del Rosario Jr.
My friends in government and the private sector, members of the diplomatic corps, ladies and gentlemen. First, to the organizers, thank you for your invitation to participate in this mid-year briefing. It's the first time in years that government officials are willing to listen to me. I promise to put on my best behavior. Before anything else, allow me also to express my word of thanks to Governor Tetanco and his team at the Bangko Sentral for helping keep our economy on the right track these past years. You have our country's respect and admiration, Governor. I've been given 8 minutes, so let me be brief and straight to the point. I'm here as a representative of the private business community, so I will try to focus on those issues that concern us the most. In a nutshell, many of the presentations this morning show that our government has very high hopes and very high aspirations for our economy, but very limited resources. And one of the big solutions offered is PPP, public-private sector partnerships. I don't think it is an exaggeration to say that much of the entire 6-year economic plan of the Aquino administration in fact hinges quite strongly on its ability to mobilize very significant private sector investments, domestic as well as foreign. Given scarce government resources, it is private sector investments that will provide the growth and the jobs needed in our economy. Dr. Paderanga in his presentation succinctly identified the elements for what he calls an enabling environment for private sector investment and entrepreneurship, and he listed stable macroeconomic management, sound and consistent public policies, adequate investment in infrastructure, effective anti-corruption measures, enforcement of the rule of law, efficient investment programming processes. I think it is fair to say that the private sector is much more hopeful now that such an enabling environment for investments can in fact be put in place successfully, because the new administration enjoys very high credibility and trust. I am not in the business of praising government officials, but I must say that the cabinet organized by President Aquino is made up of outstanding professionals with records of superior competence and integrity. Unfortunately, credibility and trust are fleeting and must be reinforced if they are to endure. Thus, in this first year of the Aquino administration, the cabinet, in my humble opinion, would be well advised to focus substantial energies on setting the tone early for a more attractive environment for private sector investments. Let us look at some of the key requisites. First, I would like to discuss stable macroeconomic management together with effective anti-corruption measures, because to a certain extent they go together. The major macroeconomic challenge, as we have been told, is our large fiscal deficit. Currently, the DOF and the BIR and BOC are focusing on plugging the holes before imposing new taxes. Plugging the holes needs extraordinary determination, courage, and resolve. Let me focus on something specific, which Ito Carlos also referred to. In recent years, there have been rampant accounts of the massive smuggling of oil products, principally, supposedly, through Subic. And the question is, if this has not been plugged, why has it not been plugged so far? Why is it allowed to persist? What will it take to put a stop to this massive crime? And what about the supposed also rampant smuggling of vehicles in Subic and certain specific ports of entry? If these massive leaks are not plugged early, why should the public believe that this administration is truly less tolerant of smuggling than the previous one? At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I truly believe that convicting one big smuggler or tax evader must be a major objective, and I congratulate the DOF for their initial success in these lines. It must be aggressively pursued early to establish the anti-corruption credentials of the new administration. Filing of cases is, of course, extremely important, but that's the easy part. Where all past efforts have failed is in getting significant convictions. If this administration hopes to retain its high credibility, it must succeed early in this effort. Perhaps the Justice Secretary should be made a full-fledged member of the economic team. Another quick action item that would boost confidence in the economic team is to quickly and decisively address the issue of the scandalous overcompensation of some executives of GOCCs and GFIs. The facts are there. Decisive action is all that is needed. Next, let me discuss adequate investment in infrastructure in the context of sound and consistent public policies. I share the view that the most critical infrastructure requirement of this country today, in my mind, is the availability of power. I also believe that the single most important deterrent to investments in new power plants is the inconsistency and unpredictability of regulations and policies related to energy. In spite of anticipated supply shortages in 3 to 4 years, there is no rush to build new power plants because investors have no assurance that they will be allowed to realize reasonable returns on their investments without encountering populist regulations that arbitrarily and unreasonably depress energy pricing. This is not an easy problem to solve. I believe our most senior energy officials and the President himself must declare in unequivocal terms their commitment to allow market-determined pricing to prevail, and these declarations must be backed up by consistent behavior from the energy regulatory bodies. This commitment to market-based pricing must, however, be accompanied by firm and intelligent regulatory oversight that will ensure genuine competitive behavior among the power plant owners and operators from the private sector and all the key players in the energy business. Any collusion or cartelization will render market-based pricing a mockery. The urgency of providing an enabling environment for private sector investment in significant power projects cannot be overstated. The regulatory framework and policies related to energy pricing must be determined and announced, then implemented with consistency. Only then will investors begin to decide whether or not the enabling environment they seek truly exists. I might add that failure to convince investors that the right environment exists will have a disastrous impact on our economic aspirations if, as expected, power shortages materialize in 2013 or 2014 onward. Other priority areas also need clear policy pronouncements, in particular mining. Here again, early determination of national policy is critical to allow full realization of our country's potentials. Allow me to end my comments by endorsing one idea that came out in the discussion earlier among our economic managers. If we cannot abolish or significantly reduce pork barrel, we should perhaps exert the strongest possible efforts to put this to good use. And there is a simple idea that has already been propounded that I would like to endorse. As we all recognize, in my case, I would like to endorse the use of pork barrel for the primary requirement of further financing improvements in our education system. If we realize that education really is the best answer to poverty, I think it is probably appropriate for the President and his team to exercise their leadership and do what is necessary so that as much of the pork barrel as possible is used to finance education reform in our country. Such a bold initiative, if successfully implemented, I think would mark this administration as one that genuinely seeks our nation's best interest. In closing, let me say that we are all in this together. The success of the government team is also our success. Our message is go for it. Set the right tone early. Get the fundamentals in place. Build on the trust and confidence you now enjoy. Do this, and we should be able to look forward to 6 or perhaps even 12 or more good years for our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Del Rosario. We began